Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I hope you're ready for another evening here on iRacing tonight for round 9 of the GT3 Thursdays Championship here on America's Racing League. We are underway for qualifying at VIR, all 25 drivers vying for the top spot in hopes of greater results in the race to come. If you are unfamiliar with tonight's and this season's run of show, we start with a 10-minute qualifying session where only 2 valid laps are able to be set for all of our drivers, so it usually doesn't end up being 10 minutes. And then following that, a 60-minute sprint race for greater excitement and greater battles. Look no further than this championship. It has been absolutely fantastic throughout the campaign. Of course, this is round 9 of 12. So we're actually reaching towards the very end of this championship that's been with us for so many weeks. And no better way to start my evening than to sit and listen for a few moments to the greatest sounding GT3 car of all time. I will not accept any other answers. The Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2. They've been sparse in their appearance in this championship. This one being driven by Blake Trowich in what I've just decided we're going to call the Calberghini for tonight, given its livery. But the times are already coming thick and fast. And speaking of cars we don't often see or don't often hear in this series, it's the Ferrari 296, driven by Wyatt Johnson. I don't know why we don't see a lot of 296s, I must freely admit, but here's one. And it's currently 4th overall, with Michael Hickman amongst the first starter laps, setting the benchmark at a 1:44.583. Those of you not familiar with Virginia International Raceway, it is... well, it's a racing circuit, let's be honest. I will not play around the fact that it's not my favorite piece of tarmac around the world, but I can't argue its history, and in fact, I have a bit of a personal connection. I've been to this track a couple of times. I spent many of my formative years about an hour away from VAR, and watched a couple of track days, did some go-karting around the go-karting circuit that they may or may not still have. It has been many years. But I appreciate its existence. It's not without pedigree, of course. IMSA comes and races here every year, and there's not many other high-class racing series other than that in the U.S. that's that gets everybody talking. It's IMSA. Piotr Shabilski has come in and moved the benchmark a bit further from where Michael Hickman was. I think most of these drivers putting in their second and final time, though this man, Paul O'Malley, the current championship leader, not having set a time as of yet. The good news, he's got plenty of time to finish this one and go and do another one, so we'll see what it looks like coming across the line. Piotr Shabilski was very quick in the practice session before the race, so he's sort of the man to beat in my eyes, but that lap put Paul O'Malley in 4th position. Reasonably tight looking throughout the field. No notable craziness. I'm just happy to see a good number of cars. After all, 25 are signed up, 25 are in the race to come. How many of those 25 are going to set a lap? Well, we're not entirely sure. Here's Leon Vallejo in the nicest numbered Porsche. Across the line. Went 15th overall for them. A well-known midfield fighter sporting the ARL livery, of course. One of the ARL drivers and possibly a member of staff. I don't know. I don't know who's staff and who isn't anymore. I think I'm technically staff, but not actually. I don't know. I'm just a guy who likes talking about racing. Still with a few minutes to go, I don't see any big names or big times jumping up as of yet. You see one of the drivers doesn't set a lap time. Cody May is just sort of relaxing and is chilling at pit exit and isn't quite going on to circuit yet, along with Devin Strauss. I'm going to assume that they are electing to not qualify in this evening's event, which is fair. They're allowed to do a name that I'm very familiar with, but have yet to have the pleasure to see on iRacing, at least in an event at ARL, is Thiago Lorena, who unfortunately has already finished their qualifying. So, in fact, we get to look at Jim, the marshal, who's just standing in a little wooden structure, trackside. But they are a well-known driver over on AMS2. Very, very quick driver in AMS2. I think previous champion in certain seasons, or multi-time race winner at the very least. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do behind the wheel of their Corvette. And overall, it's going to be a excellent race, I'm almost sure. Time's ticking down. I'll do my usual where I sort of check and see if anybody's still circulating, because there's always that awkward moment. Well, that was a brief Ted Piper, though he's not moving around. Leon Vallejo, he's still... I was going to say he's still circulating, but at the exit of Horseshoe Turn 1, he's decided that's it. He probably set his final time and ended their campaign, but it does not appear that anybody is still circulating around. Things will sort of hang out for a few moments, and while we are hanging out for those few moments, I will pull up in its not very glorious but still acceptable state the top 10 going into round 9 here for GT3 Thursdays. If you're a bit confused and you're like, wait a minute, I feel like it's been too long since you've heard my beautiful voice, well, there's a reason for that. Right before we were getting ready to go and get underway for round 8 at Interlagos, iRacing just, I don't know, something was broken on their back end, so we were not able to go live, so it was pushed. Hopefully that round will still occur at the end of the season. Might get put in at the very tail end, but we will carry on nonetheless, and we will pretend like this is round 9 and we just finished round 8, because it's still Paul O'Malley at the top of the field. Michael Hickman's in second. Piotr Chabilski, who's on pole again tonight, is in third. Anne-Marie De Pasquale, after a series of tricky races and not so stellar finishes, still looking to bounce back in the closing stages of the championship. James O'Brien is in fifth. Marcus Taylor is in sixth. Devin Strauss, seventh. Daniel Kent is in eighth. And Ted Piper, David DeLeon are tied for ninth at 47 points. There's a big spread from top to bottom, but there's still time for, season to go underway. We have 3 more rounds. I'm doing air quotes because there's a possibility for Interlagos, as I just said, to return at the very end of the season. So still time to get those crucial points. But as we're getting ready for the safety car to be released, I will remind you, in case you hadn't read the names on the left side of the screen already, our qualifying results. Piotr Chabilski managed to put it on pole, keep it on pole. Michael Hickman, his first lap was his best lap, and it was good enough for second. Paul O'Malley got up to third. Anne-Marie De Pasquale in fourth position. Wyatt Johnson in the lone Ferrari, the Fezza, if you will, in fifth. George Reynolds Jr. in sixth. Marcus Taylor, seventh. David DeLeon, eighth. Stefano Zanatti in ninth. Javi Sanabria, 10th. Piper, Trowick, Wiggins, Madonia, and Patarakis are 10 to 15, where Vallejo, Daniel Kent, Thiago Lorena, Matthew Sosi, Youngwon Kim are 16 to 20, and your final 5, who did not put in a qualifying time: Devin Strauss, Sam Grafe, Nick Dawson-Lathan, Cody May, and Cody Baumeister. We are getting ready. They're going very slowly through the roller coaster, the section through from turns 13 to turn 15. Final corner now, which is the Hog Pen, as it's saying. Very good American naming schemes on the circuit. Nothing fancy, nothing in Italian. It's just Hog Pan and Horseshoe, but the safety car is in, which means it is up to Piotr Przybylski to kick this race off. It seems he has gone for it, and he got the better launch from Hickman and O'Malley, so great work from him to get underway in this race. It looks like just behind, though, Hickman is going to be under a little bit of pressure. There's Anne-Marie on the outside, thinking of maybe moving up a position on Dadman GT. Paul O'Malley on the inside, not looking through there. It's going to be tricky to overtake here tonight, as it always is at VIR, but Piotr has done the hard work. A bit of movement in the backfield, just a bit. George Reynolds is up in position or two, but it doesn't seem like, crucially, any early mistakes, any scary moments, and nobody. Oh, dropping back just a bit. There's Anne-Marie. She went into the grass just a little bit, lost a bit of momentum as they entered the snake for the first time. A couple of cars too wide. Everybody's still trying to work their way through, but everybody is looking great, lined up, coming through towards turn 10, and for the first time, possibly all season, everybody is here. We're not missing anybody. We're actually missing somebody. Cody Baumeister did not appear to take the flag. He's on the screen, but he's not here on circuit. A bit of movement happening as they go through Oak Tree Bend. Anthony Madonia trying to squeeze their way and successfully squeezing their way past David Wiggins on the outside. The leaders are ready. The top three making their way forward, separating themselves from the likes of Wyatt Johnson and backwards. Very stellar. Looks like the AMG of David Wiggins, actually, excuse me, that's the AMG of Stan Padarakis, was trying to make his way through on the roller coaster. But as I said, not a lot of big overtaking opportunities by nature of there really only being a few big braking zones. Turn one, namely, being a big one. Some drivers getting wide on the final corner. It's extremely tricky and losing a bit of their run on each other. Stan Padarakis with a great run. He's going to run it past Tiago Lorena, but Lorena having the inside for turn one. Stan looking for the switchback. It just kisses the rear of Padarakis. At the front, it's still Piotr Przybylski, though this time the top three not letting him get away. Lorena and now Vallejo and Padarakis are fighting away like lions. Looking further back, it's Sosi on the outside of Daniel Nick Dawson-Lathan, but he goes wide and into the wall. He loses his front bumper on his Porsche, so a tricky start for Matthew Sosi as he tried to go around the outside of the snake. David DeLeon seems to have had a huge moment coming into turn 10. He's way wide of the circuit. He's going to have to filter his way back on safely, and that's going to bump him back to the back of the field. Marcus Taylor with Stefano Zanatti just behind. Lone Aston Martin, trying to carry the British brand's name, is doing well up into 8th. The ends of the roller coaster, and it's not, it is a bit large braking zone. Don't get me wrong, coming off the back street into turn 14, but it's not as a traditional big braking zone. I think an issue for Youngwon Kim, it actually looks like he might be missing the rear of that BMW. So something clearly happening to them, but maybe no, maybe just an off track. Nope, the rear is on that BMW. Everything is looking good to go, but I think just a bit of an off track moment. Slippery grass and such. Stefano Zanatti, as we looked away, decided I'm going to make my move now into turn 1, but Taylor is worrying about Piper on his outside. A brace of V8s. As you can see, Blake Trowich in the Huracan. I was calling it the Huracan. I was calling it the wrong thing. Look at Hungary in the background. Your Stan Padarakis trying to make his way through on Leon Vallejo. Elbows out into the snake, and he seems like he's got the move done, but Sam Grafe now looking to slide on through, but not quite. It's just such a narrow circuit. It's so difficult to get through, but everybody fighting for control at this moment. But everybody having to remain in single file. There's so many S-like corners. There's so many medium and high-speed corners that leads to sort of having to stay behind. A moment for Nick Dawson-Lathan. He's out wide as well. Turn 10. It's like what we just saw last lap. Nick Dawson-Lathan, of course, having been a stunner of a driver in a few races since they joined the field. It's having a struggle out there. VIR, not a difficult circuit. Or excuse me, it's not an easy circuit. It's a very difficult circuit. Super technical. It's asking a lot from your car. It's asking a lot from your setup. Stan Paterakis defending against Leon Vallejo, losing a bit of time further back. The packs are beginning to form early tonight. Usually takes a little while for everybody to sort themselves out. The front three led still by Piotr Szybilski with the mighty McLaren in the background. A sandwich of two American motors with the mid-engine supercar between them. Wyatt Johnson leads 4th through 6th. Anne-Marie De Pasquale looking to get back up into that 4th position after the early mistake in the race and possibly a move here. Just getting in the mirrors is Anne-Marie. And as we look further back, Javi Sanabria, 25 car, leading the rearward pack in what is most of the field. There's a couple of stragglers as well, led by Young Wan Kim. This seems the three drivers who had the trickiest of the starts here tonight, but packs are forming early. Everybody, though, vying for their best possible result. Sam Grafe, after getting overtaken by Leon Vallejo, is now having to squarely look behind them rather than ahead, as as Daniel Kent is bearing down in the red and white AMG. That's turn 12, Oak Tree Bend, such that there was a massive oak tree that was on the exit of that corner, which I don't think exists anymore, if I remember my biology correctly around this circuit. A moment for Javi Sanabria. He's round, coming into the corkscrew, having to reverse a bit into the grass, and crucially has to be super patient to re-enter the circuit. So very safely done by Javier Sanabria, and it's just such a tricky and frustrating thing to do. When you make a mistake, you have to wait until you can safely rejoin the circuit. You don't want anybody to get in a bigger incident. You don't want a bigger penalty. Ted Piper got through on Marcus Taylor. Stefano Zanatti, though, his next target, he was side-by-side to turn 1, but once you start coming in, really get through turn 4, you got to go single file again. You enter the snake, and then you enter the further S's for 7, 8, and 9. Very clean, very well sorted for Stefano Zanatti. To the YouTube chat, we have, as per usual, and as per always, the Szybilski fan club, which I do believe is mostly made up of the Szybilski family, which is awesome. Nothing makes racing a little bit easier as to having your family watching you and supporting you from the sidelines. That's Blake Trowich in the Murakan, trying to get around David Wiggins. Had a look, had a send, but wasn't quite able to hang it around the outside. They're coming down the back straight now. The only way, really, to make an acceptable move down the straight is you have to be fully alongside, really, because the circuit goes left into the braking zone, then right and down the hill for what is known as the roller coaster. I'm sure if you paid any amount of attention to the cars going through it, you see how it gets its name. It's almost a mini corkscrew, if you will, from Laguna Seca, one of the other famous U.S. circuits that is on the opposite side of the country. But Trowich up to 11th in their Lamborghini, just hoping to get into the top 10, still at the top of the field. Piotr Szybilski not budging at all. Corey in the YouTube chat saying that we should go to we should get a Zanatti live radio snippet. I agree. I've said that, I think, since the beginning of this this series. The first time I interacted with Zanatti, and it was a little sort of exhibition race we did before Sebring. I was getting everything set up for broadcasting the season and broadcasting iRacing as a whole. And here hearing Zanatti and getting to talk to him in rhythm. It's hilarious. It is some great commentary you get from inside the car. Though some of his words maybe not entirely broadcastable, and maybe would get us in a little bit of trouble, but it would be absolutely excellent if that were doable. Though I don't believe I have the intelligence. I was going to say the ability. I'm certain I have the ability, but I don't think I would even know how to get that underway. Thiago Lorena holding back the likes of Stan Padarakis. Won Kim again having more difficulty on this circuit. Again out of turn 10. A lot of drivers really struggling with that. I mean, it's effectively a blind corner. And a bit of an off-camber one that is turn 10. And there's no runoff, there's no barrier. It's just grass. It's just pure grass. Is just about 3 wide. Leon Vallejo's got Sam Grafe on his left. Daniel Kent just behind. It's maybe Porsche on Porsche action. As I've just also realized, it's ARL on ARL Porsches as well. One sporting the red and white, the 69 car, and then the 13 with the green and black. And the green and black has the advantage. Sam Grafe going for a move into turn 4. He managed to get his nose in out of 3, and alongside, very clean, very sweet on through, and they're into the single file sector, as I will refer to it. And every time I watch a race on this circuit, I get a bit frustrated whenever IMSA comes here. It's only the GT3 cars. I'm like, but what about the the P2s and GTPs, the big boy stuff? And just seeing the GT3s race and seeing how little space they have, yeah, that would be terrifying and possibly a bit dangerous if just the LMP2s showed along. It's still a great circuit. And so far, 12 minutes in, it's giving us some great action. Daniel Kent looking on Leon Vallejo now. He saw Grafe get through and he said, maybe a piece of that, but on the brakes, Porsche looking very, very sweet. Up at the front of the field, though, I think for the first time, a bit of movement between the three as Paul O'Malley gets through on Michael Hickman in turn 1 and a little bit loose on the outside. I noticed the gap was closing between the three. Shabilsky under a bit of pressure, but my timing was impeccable because we got to see O'Malley make his way up to second. I have a sneaking suspicion he may start to breathe down the neck of Piotr Shabilsky. Movement as well for Anne-Marie De Pasquale, but she made her way up through Wyatt Johnston as a brief triplet of yellow flags were out in the rear of the field. I'm trying to figure out who all it was. I know Daniel Kent was involved. I know probably Sanabria was involved, but Anne-Marie's made her way past Wyatt Johnson a few moments ago and is now opening the gap and hunting down the top 3. And we'll see. There's a few bits of notification on the replay, so let's see if we can figure out what just happened between the 3 cars, maybe. Because it was a flurry of yellow flags very suddenly. Oh, it's just a bit of a touch by the Porsche, and that sent Daniel Kent around, and I think that's what triggered the warning. Might have been David DeLeon, perhaps. That was the producer of that incident. I believe that is DeLeon in the 3, just a day-late and $1 short on the brakes and just a little bit into the rear of the Porsche. Devin Strauch, the first of the night to enter pit lane, is a little early. As a reminder, these cars are only allowed for 55% of the fuel that they can carry, Anthony Madonia really, really slow. The Madhouse Racing car coming out of turn 3, I think he had a moment, but it took him a little while to get back on power. As Stan Padarakis was able to get around and put a bit of a wedge between himself and Sam Grafe. Grafe is bearing down just a little bit as Devin Strauss is coming out of pit lane and going to begin circulating again. The tricky thing is, that early of a pit stop, I'm sure there was a bit of damage that created the circumstance that they would need to go down the lane, but they're not going to be able to make it, unfortunately, with that pit stop. The 55% is really only getting these cars, 30-35 minutes into a stint at most. And with 44 to go, that's going to need to be another pit stop. So a unfortunate opening stint for Devin Strauss, and an extra pit stop's going to be needed tonight, which is super, super unfortunate. It is still Piotr Szybelski confidently leading this field. I thought maybe Paul O'Malley would be breathing down the neck, but not at the moment. David Wiggins also entering pit lane. A couple of cars entering early. I'm wondering if they know something that perhaps I don't. Here's Leon Vallejo on the brakes. Thiago Reina on the inside, but getting a little bit deep in that Porsche and not being able to hang it around the outside. Those Porsches are good on the brakes, but they are not that good. I am wondering if maybe drivers are able to make it 45 minutes, and I just don't know. A huge wiggle for Vallejo. I think he's struggling on the brakes a little bit as he touches the grass and he pitches it into a slide and manages to save it by some miracle. Unfortunately, though, losing another position as a result. We're back with Anthony Madonia after his moment. Sam Grafe keeping him company and possibly bearing down just a little bit. David Wiggins moving slowly. They just came out of pit lane, already having a bit of a moment. But they are back moving again. Anthony Madonia maybe going to show us the first overtake of the night into the roller coaster. I think just about. They're giving each other equal space, equal room, but the Porsche's on the preferred side of the circuit, putting the power down and getting through. That's what I mean. It's like if you're alongside, even then it's not a guaranteed move. Extremely well driven by Sam Grafe and promoting them from the 13 car in 13th to the 13 car in 12th. Great moves from them, but Madonia is not going to sit idly by, is not going to let that stand, no. Going to attempt to come back. We are absolutely experiencing some of the greatest field spread of the season so far already. Cars, I wouldn't say struggling to keep up with each other, but the difference between the quickest cars, the mid-pack, the sort of rear gunners, and then the ones on perhaps the struggle bus tonight is quite large. It reminds me of the Charlotte Roval, one of the wild circuits that was thrown in to the listing. Anthony Madonia losing it bigly out of turn 10. It's not getting easier for the Skull Pegasus BMW machine. 12 gets underway again. I missed a bit of a trick there, because it was the 12 car in 12 fighting the 13 car in 13th, and they swapped positions. That was cool. The Madhouse Racing driver, one struggle into another. Daniel Kent, though, looking like they want a bit of a piece as we go on board with Kent as they finish up the lap. Nick Dawson-Lathan, of course, is right on the rear as well. What a really good exit coming out of the final corner. There's a possibility that Kent's going to have a run here into turn one. I think Anthony Madonia is going to need to go defensive, maybe stay defensive. No, he opens up the opportunity for maybe a late move on the brakes, but BMW very, very confident in their braking, though running a bit wide towards the exit. And also getting a little bit loose out of there. Loose again on the brakes. It is a difficult surface and an ever-changing in terms of camber, in terms of grip level. There's a lot of curbs. None of them are super tall, but it's not the grippiest circuit in the world, so everybody's seeming to struggle with that. Nick Dawson-Lathan from there. Early spin at the top of the hour coming through. A couple of yellow flags for Grafe and Lorena. I think that was more them perhaps following each other. Bravely off circuit is coming across the apex of turn 10. The Corvette gets super loose coming over the crest. It almost looked like the front wheels were lifted off the ground. But that is what that looks like for Nick Dawson-Lathan to go from bad to just a little bit worse. Sam Grafe, having dispatched Lorena, is looking further and further and further. Said 12th was decent. 11th would be better. As actually, excuse me, Checo Lorena made their way through on, I think on De Leon, but they were promoted possibly also as a result of Madonia having their incident a few moments ago. Looking a bit further up the field towards the front end. This is the first time that the gap between Shabilsky and O'Malley has really been greater than a second. But Hickman, though, really up in the back of the Mustang in second. I'm looking at the gap between Anne-Marie and the front three, and while she is quicker than Wyatt Johnson in fifth, and that gap is ever growing, there is still she's not quite closing up to the lead pack, and if she is, it's not super quick at this moment, so maybe an excellent pit strategy is going to be necessary to take another step forward. Though with an hour sprint race like this, with not a mandatory pit stop but a necessary one, there isn't a lot of room to make up time. Maybe a bit of fuel saving, maybe a bit of short filling. A mixture of the two could gain a couple seconds in pit lane, but I would not count the Red Bull Racing Esports driver out of this fight at all. It is just, at the moment, a bit of ebb and flow. Rafe still looking. Rafe still thinking. Porsches are hungry tonight. A lot of the best action we've seen have been from Porsches, and speaking of, that was not a Porsche, but a BMW on an AMG. That's Javi Sanabria, who lost their front end, and that might be the first time I've ever seen an AMG without the big gawping mouth, and it looks, well, all race cars look strange when they're missing some body work, because I know Kent fancied himself a bit of a move there. Both cars sort of concertinaing into each other. Madonia was slow out of three, and Kent maybe thought of a maneuver, but you can see it's nice with the AMG behind it. It looks very naked. It looks incredibly naked, as most GT3 cars do when they're missing important bits. And believe it or not, the front end of your car, very important bits. It means you don't have the canards or the dive planes on the front, which means you have less downforce. You have greater cooling, but then you also have greater drag. So, ebbs and flows. Here's David DeLeon making a run on the back straight on Thiago Lorena into the braking zone for 14. It seems that Vallejo is through, but on the exit, just coming around, it's Stan Padarakis into Sam Grave. They're both into the wall in huge fashion. As an immediate tow to pit lane for Stan Padarakis, and I would assume the same for Sam Grave. They were coming out of the roller coaster and went on a bit of one themselves. You can see this is a replay of what happened. Grave was getting out, and Padarakis did not want to let this one go, but very loose was the Porsche, and you could see maybe a bit of left from the Porsche, a bit of aggression from Stam means that didn't end particularly well. I just want to see that one more time from the onboard. See, Porsche super loose. There's a moment here. The door's kind of shut, and Stam almost tries to drive through the Porsche as they come in. Oh, it's up under the curb for the AMG and into the side. It was just sort of a 2-into-1. Not quite going, but a huge incident at the halfway point here at VAR. It's, the circuit bites back. But both of those drivers pretty much being out of this race, maybe only racing each other at this point. Cody May as well, having retired from this race. They are the first and only retirement of the moment, save for Cody Baumeister, who did not take the green flag. Another Porsche on another Corvette. Thiago Lorena, maybe that C8 isn't as great in a straight line compared to others, as they seem to be sort of undergunning a little bit on the back straight, but for the moment, holding off any potential comers, looking a few positions ahead at Stefano Zanatti with the one, the only, the Ted Piper on the rear, making their return. A very busy man is Ted. It's good to see them back on the circuit, and thanks again, and apologies again to Ted and all who were involved in the Monday race finale for Porsche Cup, and I apologize simply because there was a new and horrific technical issue that meant that most of half of the stream was useless and has now been disappeared. But if you're curious on seeing, that's very on edge for Zanatti. If you're very curious of seeing what race 2 looked like, it was soaking wet, and it was at Spa. I had a absolutely wonderful and incredibly talented commentator, Jesse Lee, with me. Paul O'Malley's in the grass. He's made a huge mistake. Anne Marie is actually able to squeeze through, and maybe Wyatt Johnson might get through as well, but out of the roller coaster again. Another mistake. Wyatt Johnson's going to go in the pit. It's just this last lap. Youngwon Kim went in as well. Let's see just for a moment what happened to Paul O'Malley as we missed it. That is, I believe it's a back marker in that BMW. It's just a tiny tap in the rear as he gets onto the power. That is really tricky for Paul O'Malley. He wasn't trying to lose any time ultimately coming out of that corner, and I believe that was the BMW of maybe Youngwon Kim. It was. So Kim was sort of getting involved there as a bit of lap down traffic for the leaders, and coming out of pit lane, maybe on fresh tires. A bit cold into the grass briefly, so a big moment for Paul O'Malley. From second now down to fourth, but there is about a 10-second gap up to the position that they were previously in. This does mean, though, that Michael Hickman is back in second and back on the hunt. Shabilsky, though, very comfy out in front tonight, pleasing all of the Shabilsky fan club. Daniel Kent under threat from Dawson Lathan, who this time coming out of turn 10 lot better than the last time we saw him do it, but wide for Kent, though, in the braking zone. An error forced by Dawson Lathan, and Lathan's through in their Corvette GT3R up into a provisional 10th position. Drivers now pitting. Everybody pretty much pitting here on the halfway distance. Anne-Marie is in from the front running pack. Ted Piper as well. The top three, as it was for most of the race, is still leading out in front. But as pit lanes begin, or as drivers begin to pit, these two as well going down the lane. As they come out, things start to get spicy again. Fight that we saw that wasn't quite concluded earlier on has now reignited between the blue and white Corvette and the black and white, excuse me, the red and white Porsche. Bit of movement there for Vallejo, saying, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Don't look at the braking zone. Miss your braking point. If ever you see a driver sort of maybe ducking to the inside of a corner for seemingly no reason, there is a reason. It's to force an error. It's to make the driver think about the car behind and not the road ahead. Whether that error was forced, Lorena was looking a little bit too cautious into the final corner. Needed to go defensive, but oh, it's just a bit late on the brakes. That error was forced and it didn't take long. Vallejo now able to squeeze up the inside from the outside. A little switcheroo for the pair. Just behind, it's Nick Dawson-Lathan who's gone wide, and Daniel Kent, who as well went deep into the corner, had to wait for the Corvette to get out of the way. Lathan out of pit lane. Oh, more difficulties for the Corvette. It just seems like that car is very loose tonight, and he's not able to hang with it. Your leaders are in pit lane. Shabilsky released now onto the circuit, still leading. Not surprised. And a couple more cars still there, and as echoing what Jesse said on Monday, which I agree with him, the fact that it says out, referring to all drivers being on their out lap, I understand, but it is very annoying, because when I see out next to a car, I think they've basically retired from the race. So occasionally when you see that, I'm like, wow, why have they retired? But no, they're on their out lap, so that is what that means. Fear. Don't worry about it. We're good. But it does seem that everybody has come out of pit lane. I'm also noticing that Stan Paderakis, after suffering the damage early on, possibly either too long of a repair or possibly not wishing to continue after that, not wanting to run at the very tail end of the field, they have retired. After the pit stops, though, Paul O'Malley, it was about I think a 6-second gap to Anne-Marie, and Anne-Marie's gap to Michael Hickman was about 4 seconds, maybe the other way around. But coming out of pit lane, whether Anne-Marie took some extra fuel or was a bit slow on the in-lap, is truly very much under pressure now from Dad Man GT. One of the sort of rivalries that were sparked this season was that of Dad Man GT versus Red Bull Racing Esports. Mustang versus Mustang, as we've seen so many times this season. Mustang seeming to be a very, very strong contender at the top of the field. Anne-Marie, though, fending it off for the moment. This is the fight for ninth. Marcus Taylor leading Shrawich. The Murakan versus the AMR Vantage. 007 Vantage, as it turns out. Well, it's the 7, but it's got 007 on the side of it. You know what I mean. But it's V10 versus V8, front versus mid. Brief yellow flag for Hickman just that moment ago, but I think it's that the circuit's so narrow. There's lots of room for error, and anytime somebody puts their wheel on the grass, it tricks the automated systems to be like, hey, they're off circuit. Hey, pay attention. You need to pay attention. It's fine. Everybody's fine. I'm looking now for any big movers out of the pit stops. Doesn't seem to really be any. A couple drivers up a position. I've noticed that Ted Piper managed to get ahead of Zanotti through the pit stops. It's 7th for them. And Sam Grafe coming back from their accident, trying to grab any points they possibly can. Is now Dawson Lathan appears to have, Sanabria in the very appropriate for this circuit WeatherTech red, white, and blue machine. Has appeared to have gotten a new front. So they bolted on a new front bumper, new canards, new splitter. So that car is back to full strength, as is Rafe's Porsche. So they're fighting for the 20th position on circuits. Doesn't sound like it's worth much, but hey, every point counts at this stage in the championship. Everybody has little fights of their own. Not everybody vying for the trophy at the end, but maybe they're looking for, a top 10 finish in the championship, and every little point at this stage can change favors. I think a moment for Hickman just ahead. The gap was, well, it was less than 3.5 seconds a few moments ago. I can tell you that. There was a brief off track, and we'll see. Is it maybe a moment for the McLaren? It is just a bit deep into Oak. Sure, you're losing them a bit of their run against Piotr Shabilski, but that does mean that Piotr is very comfortable. Blake Trowich, though, another car going excessively deep into turn 10. You could see the wheel tracks as he was coming back onto the circuit. That meant that they've lost a position. Actually, I don't believe they have. Maybe they got away with it. But we will take a look at what happened. No, it was as they got ahead of Marcus Taylor and into the corner. It was a full 360 into the grass, not just going deep, but a lot of drivers managing to catch these huge spins in that grass. That grass must have a lot of grip. Must be some nice compacted, clean cut grass. Everybody managing to not spin end over end and get everything going again. That was 2 positions down for Trowich. Anne-Marie still with O'Malley breathing on her neck. So now we'll get full force of V8 exhaust note. For all the Mustang fans out there, I'll be quiet. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's not get carried away now. But it was interesting to look that Paul O'Malley seemed to just be a bit tighter everywhere, a bit more nailed down through the corners. Anne-Marie, wider lines, but seemingly a bit better on corner exit. The old adage, slow in, fast out, a moment of weakness spotted by the Dadman GT, a bit of door banging on the exit. out of turn 3 as Anne-Marie tries to turn in and finds the rear of the Mustang. He was very close. He spotted his moment. A very aggressive move, but one that was dealt with fairly well. O'Malley back on the podium. And it was defended as long as it could be by Anne-Marie, but held no longer through is one Mustang on another. Anne-Marie, though, seeming to have found a bit more pace. You know, you got the carrot or the stick being when a fast car is behind with you, now the carrot being when the fast car is ahead of you. I'd be surprised, or I wouldn't be surprised if see Anne-Marie be able to hang on for a while, be able to maybe go a bit quicker, and perhaps these two to close in on Hickman just a little bit closer. We're below the final 20 minutes of this session. And we are within the end of pit stops, I'm almost certain. I don't think anybody's going to be stopping again. Maybe some of the two that we saw stop earlier at around the 45-minute mark, finding themselves in need of some more fuel. But the fight for the top 3 seems to be over for the moment. The fight for the Murakhan definitely not over yet. Trowich up as far as 8th position, finding themselves round and round in turn 10 into the grass again, losing a bit of momentum, opening up the door for David DeLeon. DeLeon is going to take that, say thank you very much. It's almost strange that it's just white. No design, no nothing. I promise you these are everybody's custom liveries that they chose to run, but it's almost a bit strange. It's just a white Porsche. It almost, you know, looks like a guy on a track day. But David DeLeon, right place, right time, will take the mistake in open arms from the cow-colored pink accents, of course. Everybody loves a pink race car. Wiggins has the pace and says, I'm going to hang back, but they're both bearing down on David Wiggins, who's in 10th. Tiago Lorena and Devin Strauss are fighting hard as they both come into turn 10. I think it was a bit of a touch on the rear. Devin Strauss maybe just getting into in turn 10, and Tiago Lorena. I'm curious what that looked like. Again, see if maybe we can show it from the rear of the Corvette. Oh, well, should see a Porsche up here. Let's see if there was a bit of contact. Nope, I think that was on his own. That was not as good of a look as I was hoping. I will freely admit that was a bit of a poor job. We'll try to see that again from the offboard. But I do think that perhaps a bit of netcode, maybe possibly, but I do think that Corvette was a bit loose and went round. Miranda, though, able to rejoin the circuit, not having lost too much time, did lose another position, but not the end of their race. Crucially, as I alluded to moments ago, DeLeon and Trawick have reached the back of the only car between them two and the top 10, or the fight for the top 10. We got a three-way battle brewing coming through the second bit of S's. That would looking like the Porsche was very quick on Wiggins, but out of the corner, maybe taking a bit too much apex curve was David DeLeon, but everybody just about equal. Cletus making a very good point that I could view that from a rear quarter panel view. That is a incredibly good point. Let's give that a try. I believe that would need to be a left rear suspension. Let's see. Oh, I can't tell. I'm really not sure. All right, I want to see that one more time. It's close enough for it to be netcode contact, I would argue, but it doesn't look like it was unsettled. You didn't see any, like, sharp movement as if there was contact. I think he just happened to lose it on the end. But thank you for reminding me that those cameras do exist. Though we just missed Devin Strauss falling back, but we also missed Daniel Kent dropping back, though I didn't see, strangely, I don't see anything on my replay regarding a crash or a yellow flag. There is decidedly one less car in front of these two. There's a lot of cars suddenly falling back in the field, and wondering maybe if I spent too much time on the replay scene, and now all the replays are broken. So good news, technical issues probably. But I think everybody in the YouTube chat in agreement, and I agree with you all, that it was just a losing it, but it was very close. Dowell's saying arrow code as opposed to net code, and I do agree. That was about as close as you can get. But coming up the hill in turn 10, it's not the first time we've seen a car lose it, so it's not like it's, you know, a corner where it's like, how could he lose it there? No, that's very common. That's happened. Maybe that's the 5th or 6th time tonight. But I would wish for something to appear on my screen that would imply that, you know, Daniel Kent lost it, because he's now 28 seconds behind these two. But I have nothing. So we will carry on. Nonetheless, it's... Well, I would say my prediction was correct 50%. I said that I really thought that Anne-Marie would hold on. She absolutely is holding on to the back of Paul O'Malley, but they haven't gotten any closer to Hickman or Shabilsky. In fact, they've dropped back a further 2 seconds. I think they're fighting each other instead of maybe working together a little bit to reach the front, maybe realizing that, well, I don't think there's enough time left in this race to make up 7 seconds, and as we're into the final 12 minutes, I may just agree with them, because the pace out front has been exceptional this evening. Shabilsky running at the head of the field and comfortably doing so. But the question of what could have been for O'Malley if it were not for that spin in turn 15 just before all the pit stops were underway. I don't think we've seen the end of this fight, though. Very end of the lap, it seemed that Anne-Marie was quicker that last lap, and maybe that is a common theme of the night. As more insight from the YouTube chat, who know more than I do, shall we say. It's Jay Dowell saying that there was a bit of lap traffic that they were dealing with that might have pushed them back, which that is quite fair, especially considering that the 13 car of Sam Grafe is behind them, which would imply that they just took him. So yeah, but out of the Oak Tree corner, Anne-Marie's getting really close, but needs to stay very close through this section of corners. See how they look into the final corner. Super, super difficult Paul O'Malley just being able to get on the power a bit earlier, maybe getting on the power a bit better. But there's not going to be an opportunity this time. It is a long straight, but it's not that long. See, the gap came down. I'm confident on the brakes, but this time by, no change between the two. And still no change between the ice white Porsche and the Huracan. Is there now a storyline that, you know, the white Porsche, it looks a bit of a maybe a milky white color, shall we argue, and there's a cow themed car behind? Is it a cow trying to chase down milk? It doesn't really, it worked a bit better in my head. I don't know. There's something there. There's a joke there, but I just don't have it in me. I'm sure somebody watching has a much better joke than I, and feel free to share it in the YouTube chat, and I will give you all the props you deserve if it's funny. If it's not, I will laugh at you. I will not do that. Between the two, they are dead even. And again, though, almost working together to chase down the car ahead. Marcus Taylor was a lot further ahead a few laps ago, but is now within about a second and a half, a little over. Man, that Lamborghini sounds good as it's coming through. It's a very unique set of sounds. The flat six of the Porsche versus the V10 of the Lamborghini. If you can't tell, and if you haven't heard me say it before, big fan of the Lamborghini GT3 car. Possibly my favorite of the bunch. The fight for third is still on. The laps are ticking down. We are entering the final stages. Really only, I would say, 3 laps or so. Oh, a mistake for Marcus Taylor has brought the gap down just a little bit more. David De Leon is now right on the back. What was a second and a half is now a quarter of a second out of the final corner. Porsche's looking good, looking quick. Taylor going defensive in the Aston Martin, but sort of running up the middle of the circuit. Maybe a switchback and hard on the brakes in the Porsche. He's close, but no cigar. Trawick behind. It's probably going to hope to follow De Leon through on whatever the move ends up being. But crucially needs to be close enough for that to happen. Maybe De Leon all over the back of the AMR for whatever reason. This has been a thing for me for a while. I keep wanting to call the Aston Martins AMGs because it's the AMR Aston Martin Racing instead of just calling it the Vantage, which is what it is. So I don't know. You are wondering why I keep saying AMR. That's why. I just have a thing. Anthony Madonia seems to have lost it again. Really, really tricky day for him and a lot of drivers, and realizes that that's the race leader coming through with a brace of traffic and is just tooling along, coming back through and saying, I'm going to pick the right moment here to go for a maneuver. Speaking of maneuvering, David De Leon has found their way alongside the AMR, but into the side in the braking zone. Marcus Taylor is shunted off the circuit. And they're up into 9th. Certainly need to see that again. As I am curious. That looked like. So they're even, they crest the hill. You know, it almost, oh, that's a huge hit. That front right is now no longer touching the ground. That is, I think, race over for Marcus Taylor, but I do think this is going to be another opportunity for our really good friend, the left rear suspension camera, for that crash to see it again. It's not quite the right camera, I'll freely admit, but it didn't entirely make the view a bit better. No, here's what we're going to do one final time. We're going to try it now. Chopper cam. A nice, high-flying, big chase cam. Yeah, this'll do. See, that really looks like Taylor turning in without really realizing exactly where David DeLeon was. Maybe not expecting for a Porsche to be there. Thought maybe, this car might back out. After all, there's no Helicorsa by default in iRacing. The Helicorsa being the big radar that pops up in a lot of sims and a lot of racing games. But you just have a spotter by default. So the spotter says, hey, on your left, but if you maybe aren't able to look left or right, if you're not in VR, if you don't have a button bound to look left and right, you might not be aware of where exactly the car is. So a misjudgment for sure for the Vantage driver of Marcus Taylor, and not actually race over. They are now back on circuit. They are still recirculating using that fast repair option to return. Wide out of turn 3 for David DeLeon. Slightly, I'd say, cracking the door for Trawick, who's going to be hunting for sure in their Huracan. Am I doing this to listen to the car? Maybe a little bit. Curious who gets the better out of 12 and 13. Oak Tree corner. Taking it a bit tighter was David DeLeon, and maybe a bit cleaner coming out of the corner. You can see the gap on the left side of your screen. Stabilized though, so about equal on exit. So this time, not an opportunity. 2.5 minutes remain. 2 more laps by my best guess. It will be the white flag the next time Piotr Przybylski comes through. So only a handful more opportunities for Trawick. Though these two have been trading lap time, trading pace, it hasn't seemed that in the closing moments the Lamborghini was able to get really anywhere alongside, anywhere where there was maybe a weakness. The Porsche looking very strong here tonight. It's looking very neutral. A lot of these cars maybe a bit loose. As I say that, David DeLeon completely misses the braking point for turn 4 and just spears completely through. That is a commentator's curse, ladies and gentlemen. The moment that Blake had been waiting for several laps, finally coming true on the penultimate lap. Przybylski is through. So, beginning the final lap of the race, Nick Dawson-Lathan getting back into 13th for the final lap, the final time. Sam Grafe is, I believe, in pit lane. Maybe needing a final bit of fuel. Everybody, getting their calculations maybe just that hair wrong. Pushing that hair too far, maybe needing a liter or two. But Grafe should come out. But their race went from very good to very not good to, well, the position speaks for itself. Piotr Przybylski led this race from pole. There were maybe moments where it could have changed, but throughout everything, driving absolutely beautifully. We've seen some incredible drives from Piotr throughout the season. This seeming like one of their most confident drives around a super difficult circuit. A flash of lights and a weave through the circuit. Piotr Przybylski takes victory in Virginia. Michael Hickman crossing the line in third, hanging on just about. Paul O'Malley got through on Anne-Marie, but was not able to take that final step to the top of the field. Anne-Marie started fourth, dropped a bit, came back, was having a sniff at a podium, but was not able to hold off the very strong Dadman GT. Wyatt Johnson in the Fezza, fifth. George Reynolds Jr. is going to cross the line in sixth position, with Ted Piper just behind to cross in seventh. It would be nice if I knew who all had crossed the line up to this point, but it's ultimately just guessing. I do know, though, that Trowick and DeLeon crossed the line for 9th and 10th. Leon Vallejo is going to cross in 11th. Daniel Kent will cross in 10th. I think the final driver who will be reaching and crossing the finish line on the lead lap tonight will be Nick Dawson Lathan. Tricky drive, round a couple times. It's 15 or 13 for the 100 in Virginia, and celebratory. Oh, I was gonna say into the wall, but in through the tire barrier. That large accident for sure, but that will do it. Your finishing order here at VIR for round 9. It is the number 9 who took victory, Piotr Przybylski. Victories are piling up. The chase for the top spot in the championship is on. Michael Hickman in second position. Paul O'Malley, third. Anne-Marie De Pasquale in fourth. Wyatt Johnson, fifth. George Reynolds Jr., sixth. Ted Piper, seventh. Stefano Zanatti in eighth. Blake Trowick in that gorgeous Lamborghini Huracan. Best car on circuit. Thank you very much. Finished in ninth. David DeLeon rounds out the top 10. Leon Vallejo, 11th. Daniel Kent, 12th. Nick Dawson Lathan, 13th. Tiago Lorena in 14th. David Wiggins, 15th. Devin Strauch in 16th. Matthew Sosi, 17th. Anthony Madonia finished in 18th position. Marcus Taylor, 19th. Avi Sanabria rounding the top 20, with Grafe Kim finishing in 21st and 22nd, with Stan Padarakis and Cody May retiring from the race. And what a race it was. It was absolutely excellent here tonight. VIR, I didn't, I wasn't sure how good of a campaign it would be. As I said at the top of the show, not my favorite circuit in the universe, but still putting on an excellent show, with celebrations for sure in the Przybylski camp, and we will see if Mr. Piotr Przybylski will join us for an interview. We've had him before, and I do remember sometimes they take a few moments to wrap up their race, get out of their sim, maybe have a nice swig of some water, and relax before joining me. But that relaxing is over, because Piotr Przybylski, welcome to the box. Congratulations. That was a hell of a drive tonight.
It was. Yeah, it was. It was actually a track I enjoy. So one of my tops.
one of the few and the proud who likes VIR. I am very publicly not the biggest fan of this circuit to watch or to drive. I'm just incapable of
Oh,
driving it, and that's a skill issue for me. But it was really entertaining tonight. It was actually fantastic, and from you seemed very controlled out there. Your car looked maybe more neutral than a lot of others. I think a lot of cars maybe running too few in the wing department. A lot of spins out of turn 10. But I mean, was there any moments out there where you were just sort of like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit nervous? I mean, for the first sort of 20-25 minutes, you had Hickman and O'Malley breathing down your neck, or were you just like, oh, it's just
yeah.
another Thursday drive?
I almost, I don't know if the camera, I don't know if you caught it. I almost dumped it, and they were like, right, we were all like almost 3 wide, almost into the S's. But Paul like gave me a small nudge, which kept me in front, and then I'm not sure what happened to him. But my car was a little twitchy in the rear, so I had to put the brake bias towards the rear more because it was a little bit too twitchy. I don't know where the pace went from quali, but I'll take it nonetheless.
Yeah, I think we did. I think we did catch that. I'm trying to remember, but
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
think. But yeah, so what happened to Paul is there was a back marker BMW, and as he was
Uh,
cresting the hill for turn 15 or turn
okay.
14, he just barely nudged into the back of the car and just
Oh,
spun as a result.
that sucks.
But no, I thought there was going to be a bit of a fight on our hands, but hey, man, small margins. That's what it's all about.
Oh,
But no, it was a stellar drive for you. As we're
oh,
coming to the tail end of the championship, we have 3 rounds left, but possibly 4 if Interlagos gets kicked back for a
oh yeah, the bye week.
finale. Yeah, it was a strange one. I was getting ready and I was like, oh, I can't join the session. I look in chat and sure enough, we're like, yeah, we're not racing this week. And I'm like, all right. I,
I was ready.
I gotta say, I really like Interlagos. It's one of my favorites. I was looking forward to it, so hopefully it maybe comes back around. But I mean, with that in mind, are you thinking maybe you could make a run for the championship?
Uh, yeah, I'm what 26 points behind Paul. I'd be just as happy with the top 3 place from starting one race down from everybody in round 2. So even if I don't win, I'll still take it. Top 3 finish in the championship after being a race deficit. So we'll see what the other races hold.
No, sweet. Well, I mean, top 3 or bust. I think you should go for it. I mean, obviously you're going to, but I think it's probably it was 30 points before this race. I will be honest, I have no idea the scoring for the championship, so I don't know the math on where you'd be after this one, but mathematically, I think a few more races like this one, I think you'd be very, very close at the finale. So,
I would hope so too.
but no,
Been a
I'll,
fun week
I'll
so far.
it's been great. I was very apprehensive, as I always am with iRacing, but this season has delivered, and fortunately, as long as I'm physically able, I will be with you guys towards the end of the season. So I'm sure it's going to be
Oh,
a barn burner of a finale and some more good races to come. But no, thank you for joining on circuit. Congrats again, and thanks for joining me in the booth for a few moments. But any shout outs before you go?
uh, I don't think so, honestly.
Not
Not
to
not
not to
not
your cheering
not for,
section.
hey, I don't know. I mean, my other DTC, I don't know. My other DTC were my low cheer squad. Um, and they did. I think they did also pretty well despite some difficulties. So unfortunately, James couldn't make it. He couldn't make it tonight. I was
I
sad about that.
knew we were missing somebody, but I just couldn't. I couldn't put my
Yeah,
finger. I was like, "There's one." I was like, "There's a car I'm used to seeing." It was one less AMG. That was what it was.
yeah.
There's one less V8. Though this field is
But
like 90% V8, so who knows?
this was I was very surprised the amount of people that joined today. So
Yeah, we had a really good, healthy grid, and it's not the greatest. I think it being this is one of the free circuits, isn't it? I think everybody gets VAR,
I believe
so I think that
I believe so.
helps.
Yeah.
But no, it Sure, it was a good one this time. I'm sure it'll be a good uh, race next week. I'm excited to see GT3s around the Mexican GP circuit because that'll be the first time I've seen anything other than an F1 car go around there. So, but
Yeah.
looking forward to that. Congrats one final time to you, Piotr. I will let you go enjoy the rest of your evening. But
Thank you. Of
thanks for joining us,
course. Have a good night.
ladies and gentlemen. That will do it. We've heard the words from the man himself. We've seen all the sights. We've heard all the sounds. We've enjoyed the company of our drivers tonight, and I have enjoyed the company of all of you watching. So thank you to all of you, of course, keeping me company, watching the streams, liking, subscribing, all the good stuff that you ought to do. As I said, I will be back next week for another round of GT3 Thursdays. There's a possibility I will return another time this week, possibly tomorrow for some Le Mans Ultimate. And then again, it might. There's a possibility that it might be a full week, but I will certainly be back on Thursday for another stream. If you're interested in joining the races, joining the league, getting more involved, head to americasracingleague.com. All the information is there. That will take you to SimGrid. That will take you to Discord. That will take you to anywhere you want to go in the entire world. The world is your oyster, as they say. If you're interested in joining me in the booth, I have good news. The door is open for anybody who wants to try their hand at commentary. Experience is not required. If you just like racing and you don't mind the sound of my voice, which I would assume you don't, considering you're watching, you're more than welcome to join me. You can send me a message on Discord. However, whatever, whyever. At the very least, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening. Homework for this week, since I usually give out homework. I don't know. I don't have any homework this week. Do something good for somebody in your life. That's my homework. Or just be good generally. Be safe. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Memorial Day. That's your homework. Enjoy the holiday weekend. That is all for me and us at America's Racing League for tonight. We will see you all very soon.